Welcome into the Saints Insider Podcast. Happy day edition. The Saints beat the Carolina Panthers 17-7 today. I'm Zach Ewing. Here we go. And this is the Saints Insider Postgame Show. Welcome in on a victory edition. It feels different, huh? I mean, and this is a little bit, I know this is the Saints' second victory, obviously beating the New York Giants in week 5, but that was sort of, I don't want to say it was a fluke, but you had 5 turnovers. Kind of felt like the Giants gave that one to you more so than the Saints took it. I at least feel differently about this one, and we'll talk about this. The Panthers did not play well. The Panthers clearly are capable of playing better, but I think the Saints get a lot of credit for this. In fact, I think this could have been worse. Just look at the Saints had first and goal at the end of the game at the 2-minute warning, just took knees. The Panthers' only touchdown came on a drive that was extended because of kind of a, not that it was a bad call, but the roughing the passer, a little bit of a fluke. Justin Reed's hand just kind of came down on Bryce Young's face mask and extended that drive. They also had an offside penalty that extended that drive earlier. The Saints had a chance at a field goal that they didn't take. Kellen Moore had kind of some weird decision making, and then the Saints also blocked a Panthers field goal that somehow resulted in a Panthers first down by a kind of a crazy rule. Again, not a bad call, but I think it was bad on the officials' part to let that thing go on 6 or 7 minutes. And yes, I just did the 6-7 thing without knowing it. For you Gen Zs in the audience, that it after a long delay, put it that way, and we had a TV commercial on Fox and everything. We come back, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, by the way, it's Panthers first down. So there were a lot of things in this game. And then the second roughing the passer call, I'm looking at some of the comments here as King CJ says here that the second roughing the passer call on Demario Davis was a terrible call. The Justin Reed one in the first quarter, I understand it was a little fluky, but I think it has to be called. If the defender hits the quarterback's face mask, it's just going to be called. The second one was terrible. But to the Saints' credit, every time something like that happened, they overcame it. Like, take that Demario Davis roughing the passer call that gives the Panthers a cheap first down when this was still a game. It was 17-7, but there was still like 8 minutes left. Panthers could have, maybe one more first down. They have a chance at a field goal that makes it a 1-score game. And instead, they get a stuff on fourth down. Alontae Taylor making a great tackle of Chuba Hubbard on that fourth down. After the weird blocked field goal first down for Carolina, Pete Werner jumps on a botched handoff. The Panthers botched a handoff, a toss play to Rico Dowdle, and Pete Werner was Johnny on the spot. So the Saints, particularly on defense, just continued to overcome this stuff. And I can't believe I'm now 3 minutes into this show without mentioning Tyler Shough. Congratulations to the rookie on his first career win as an NFL quarterback. He was tremendous. Okay, I mean, there is no other way to put it. He wasn't perfect, but he was about as close to perfect as you can expect a quarterback making his second career start to be. He was 19 of 27. We got his numbers here for 282 yards, 2 touchdowns, both on long plays, 62 yards to Chris Olave in the first half, 30 yards to Juwan Johnson in the second half. No turnovers. He was sacked twice. One of them was a little like, you got to get rid of that. The other one wasn't really anything he could do about it. Like, you could say on the touchdowns, J.C. Horn, the Panthers corner, actually fell down on both of those. And Shough didn't do anything special there because the corner fell down. Well, look, you got to recognize that. Take advantage of that. How many times did Tom Brady in his career just make a play because somebody else made a mistake? And I'm not comparing Tyler Shough to Tom Brady, but I'm saying I don't think you can just dismiss that from the quarterback. That's something you want your quarterback to do, is recognize a hole in the defense and say, boom, there's an easy play. And Tyler Shough was able to do that today. Saints ran the ball pretty well today. It was just really good. And so here on the Saints Insider, we are going to be joined live from Charlotte, North Carolina, by our 2 beat writers for the Times-Picayune, Luke Johnson and Matthew Paris. Will step in and talk, and then also hoping to get Rod Walker or Jeff Duncan They are at home and both writing columns right now. Rod is writing about the game. Jeff is writing about Paul Tagliabue, the former NFL commissioner who died this morning, and his impact on the Saints. And so we want to mention that in this post-game show too. But hopefully those guys have time to stop in and talk about this one just for a few minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to go through some comments. This is going back darn near 40 minutes. This is before the game even ended. So hopefully some of y'all are still watching. But Cedric says, Tyler got his first win. Well, he didn't get it before Spencer. Spencer did get the win against the Giants. I don't know if you're just referencing the fact that, okay, maybe the defense won that game, but the defense had a lot to do with this one too. So we'll give Spencer his win over the Giants. But yeah, Tyler Shough is now 1-1 in his career as a starter. And, again, I'm not going to turn this into a Rattler versus Shough argument, but like we kept saying it, at some point you had to see what Tyler Shough was giving you. And at some point you had to face the reality that even though Spencer Rattler was improving and showing some tangible signs of progress, the guy was 1-13 as a starter. Is that 1-12 or 1-13 as a starter? And at some point, we can argue whether wins are a quarterback stat. At some point, it has to be at least partially on the quarterback when you keep losing those games. And Tyler Shough gets his first victory in his second career start. Cedric also says trading Rashid Shaheed opened the door up for Chris Olave. He did play. Olave played exceptionally well today. He had the 62-yard touchdown. He also made a really key catch on a third down conversion on the Saints' last drive that really opened the door to them just running the clock out and having a stress-free victory at the end. So Olave did play very well. We can talk more about this. I was a little disappointed that Devon Vele wasn't more involved. I think he only had one catch. I still think the Saints are going to need to work on that receiver room. Who kind of steps up and is that number 2 receiver in Rashid Shaheed's absence. Brandon Cooks as the veteran. I think the Saints would like it to be Devon Vele or one of their younger guys, Mason Tipton maybe. Somebody's got to step up and show that they can be a starting receiver in this league. And then I think that's a position you need to look at in next year's draft. One position you might not need to look at is quarterback. This is just one game. It's just one win. There's still 8 long weeks to go. 7 games. The Saints have their bye week next week and then 7 games to go. And so we will learn a lot more about Tyler Shough, but I agree with Chip here. Impressive composure early when the pocket was breaking down. Saints got a field goal on their opening drive in large part because of a 52-yard completion to Juwan Johnson on a play that Tyler Shough just extended and extended and extended. And all of a sudden, plays like that, they break down. And if the quarterback can keep them alive, somebody pops open. In this case, it was Juwan Johnson. He kept it alive. He got it to Juwan. Juwan, great run after the catch, 52 yards into field goal range. Saints end up kicking a field goal. Kind of interesting. They had 4th and goal from the 2 and were already down 7-0 at this point and decide to kick the field goal. But I thought, as the game went on, and especially in that case, when you're having trouble pounding it in anyway, and the Saints have a lot of work to do in those goal-to-go situations. Both of their touchdowns today were obviously from a lot farther out. They still have a lot of work to do in those situations. And so I don't think taking the points was terrible there. And as the game wore on, obviously that became the correct call. That field goal was the reason the Saints had the lead at halftime and at the end of the third quarter. And it was the reason why the Panthers were chasing 2 scores in the fourth quarter instead of just 1. And so, really, really important field goal as it turned out, even though I'm not a huge fan of kicking 21-yard field goals. But we'll see. Some more comments here. D was outstanding. It certainly was. Panthers rushing and passing ineffective. The Panthers have been running the ball on everybody. They only had 73 yards rushing on 32 attempts today. So that is that was outstanding. And then once you had the lead in the fourth quarter and could force the Panthers into those passing situations, the Saints just feasted on Bryce Young. He was not good. I still have huge question marks about him. Like I was the only one on the Saints. I'm not going to make this a bragging show, but I was the only one on the Saints Insider Friday show to pick the Saints. And part of the reason I did that, because I just don't believe the Carolina Panthers are that good of a team. And I part of that is Bryce Young. I just don't think he's the guy. I think he could probably win in the situation with a great team around him. And they're 5-5. I mean, look, it's not like he's been a disaster, but I think if you put the game on his right arm, the Panthers are going to have trouble. And that's what the Saints were able to do today. Northern Saint, happy we won. Prediction would have been a lot closer had the Saints kicked those 2 field goals. I mean, maybe it would. You picked a 1-point win. It would have been a 16-point win if they'd picked those field goals. So, yeah, but you're right. Northern Saint, a long way to go, but a win is nice. And bet anyone they won't lose next week. That's true. Will be when they take the field against the Atlanta Falcons on November the 23rd back at the Dome. It will have been 3 full weeks since a Saints loss, and maybe they can keep that going. We shall see. But their next game is the Sunday before Thanksgiving. It is at home against the Falcons. Let's see what else we go. John McElroy, apparent from the middle of the second quarter, we were going to need to throw the ball. I think that's a good point. The Panthers were doing the same thing defensively that the Saints were. They wanted to they wanted to force Tyler Shough to throw. Hey, Tyler, you're a rookie. It's your second career start. Can you beat us? And the answer was yes. Tyler Shough could beat you, and did a great job there. So Dwight says he was expecting another L. This was a nice prize, nice surprise, nice prize. All of the above. King JC says Shough looked damn good. He did. I'm curious to know from everybody. I'm almost 30 minutes behind in the comments here. I'm going to try to catch up before we get some of our writers on. But I'm curious to know, after just 2 games, how many people are backing off of the Saints need to draft a quarterback next year. I'm not there yet. I think we need to see more. But today was certainly a step in the right direction. The Falcons' defense is better than the Panthers. That will be a test for Tyler Shough in a couple of weeks. Then it's the Miami Dolphins, who got a win over the Buffalo Bills today. Like, nothing is a sure thing in the NFL, even when you play against the Saints, incidentally. So we'll see how Shough continues to do this. They, play against a tough Tampa Bay defense again. But quite frankly, like, we can look forward. The Saints' schedule down the stretch has wins on it, and we've been saying that. They got their second win today. They still have the Falcons twice. The Falcons are not really a good team right now. They almost beat the Indianapolis Colts in Germany this morning. But you're talking about a team that's only a game and a half better than the Saints. They're 3-6 going into their game next week. I'm not sure who they play in week 11. It's the Carolina Panthers, actually, in Atlanta. So we'll see. I mean, it's possible the Falcons are only 1 game better than you heading into that game. So you play them twice. You play these Carolina Panthers again at home. You've got the Miami Dolphins, who are very up and down, still have games against the Jets and the Titans. There are wins on this schedule for the Saints. I don't know how many, but this is like, anybody who was saying this team was going to go 2-16, 1-17. I think that was silly. I don't think that was ever all that likely to happen. King JC says, who dat? Let's see. CWO says Jim is no longer with NOLA. That is correct. That's sad news. Won't have Jim Derry on these post-game shows anymore, but I'm happy to still go on his Datitude podcast every Friday, so you can check that out. He's still keeping the Datitude podcast alive. Zealous Ideal says we could have had 3 Tyler Shough TDs. Yeah, I mean, sure. He was not on the same page with Chris Olave on that 3rd and goal in the first quarter, but it looked like maybe there was something there had they been on the same page. So that could have been 3. He could have added 1 at the end had the Saints needed them to. Certainly 282 yards and 2 touchdowns could have been better, right? Like, Tyler Shough had 194 yards, I believe, at halftime. So he threw for less than 100 yards in the second half, mostly because the Saints didn't need him to. John says Shough shows growth, not dominance, but growth. No, I mean, if he had been dominant already, he probably starts the season, and we're having a different discussion. Brandon Kraft says 10.4 yards per passing attempt. That's the legit passing game we've been lacking. Absolutely. And we even said this last week, and the Saints were pretty dreary out in Los Angeles against the Rams. But Tyler Shough offers you this downfield passing game that, for whatever reason, was just not there with Spencer Rattler. And Rattler has the arm strength. This just seems like on the deep ball, the accuracy wasn't always there. But we saw, like on the Chris Olave touchdown, that was a dime, man. That was right where it needed to be. It allowed for the completion. It allowed Olave to keep his balance and stay in bounds. He was only like a step in bounds. And so you lose your balance there. You might take a step out, and that becomes a big play, but not, maybe the biggest play of the game, a 62-yard touchdown. King JC says Saints should have won 24-0. Yeah, things would have been different if the score had been different. It's hard to play that game, but certainly they could have scored more, right? They passed up on a field goal try to go for it on fourth down, and they had the ball inside the 10 at the end. They certainly could have scored more. And Carolina's only touchdown came on a drive that was extended by a couple of Saints penalties. And one of those penalties, it would have been an interception by Demario Davis had Justin Reed not made contact with Bryce Young's face mask on that play. So that's, I don't think it's crazy to say the Saints could have won this game 24-0. And to Brandon Kraft's point, passing threat opens up the running game. That's something we need to talk about too, because I do think this running game, because they had a lead, the Saints were able to stick with the running game. After they took a 10-7 lead and got a couple of stops, those were their first drives of the entire season with a first half lead. We're in week 10. It's hard to believe that, but they had had a couple of first half leads, but every time it had happened, the other team would go down and score and retake the lead before the Saints got the ball back. I think that happened against the Cardinals and the Patriots, maybe. And then they had the lead at halftime against the Giants, but it was with a field goal as time expired in the first half. So they didn't actually have the ball with a lead until the second half. And so the Saints able to stick with the run. Not unbelievable numbers, 37 carries, 122 yards, 3.3 yards per carry. It was actually, that includes the 3 kneel downs at the end. So it was actually better than 3.3 yards per carry. Still not great, but enough, right? Enough to make the Panthers respect that and to keep the clock moving. Saints used more than 6 minutes up on their final drive to just run the clock out, just take all drama out of this thing. I think this was the first NFL game in that noon window to end today, because the Saints just, that second half of the fourth quarter, they just held the ball and ran the clock, made Carolina use all of its timeouts. Zealous Ideal says we had a lockdown on D. Shough looked really good. Would have loved to see him try for a third TD. Look, man, you just take the wins. The wins have been few and far between. If you have a chance to kneel down, you take it. Even if throwing a pick or something and give Carolina hope, I wouldn't. No. Brian Cavett says, if this continues, it will be good to not feel like you need to draft a quarterback. I completely agree with that. We'll see. Again, it's just 2 games for Tyler Shough. We're not there yet. But also, given how the college quarterback class doesn't look anything special to me this year. I mean, Fernando Mendoza maybe for Indiana, or Julian Sayin, Ohio State. Like maybe you really like one of those guys. But if Shough plays anything like this over the second half of the season, I think you say, even if it is a top 5 pick, like as you say, give me an edge rusher or a wide receiver. Nolan Nerd to that point says he wants to see the Saints draft Decker from Indiana, who had that unbelievable catch against Penn State yesterday. Of course, that would not have been a catch, of course, in the NFL. He got 1 foot down and not 2. But yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you need a receiver, especially without Shaheed. That's got to be on the card for next spring's draft, early in that draft, if not the first round pick. I think the best receivers in college football are actually both sophomores. It's Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State and Ryan Williams from Alabama, and they're both only sophomores, so they won't be draft eligible until 2027. So we'll see how that affects things. But y'all won today. We need to worry about the draft today of all days. And we do have a visit from Jeff Duncan, Times-Picayune columnist, here to join the Saints Insider pregame show. Jeff, happy postgame. I said pregame show. Happy postgame show for just the second time here.
Yeah, and I got to fall on the sword right away because I got a little cocky with our picks on the podcast and said I was confident I would pick up a game on you. And once again, could not be more wrong. So congratulations.
I think like 3 of us are now 7-3 in our picks because I was like 1 game behind Luke and Rod, and I was the only one to take the Saints. But I mean, we've been kind of chatting with commenters here. I'm of the opinion, Jeff, and you tell me if you agree. This was, the first game the Saints won this year against the Giants. Not that the Saints didn't play fine, felt a little bit like the 5 turnovers, like New York gave that game to New Orleans. Today, it felt like the Saints dominated this game. Could have won by more, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. After they fell behind 7-0, it looked like, oh, here we go again. The same playing catch-up ball that they've been doing all year. And after that point, I mean, they dominated the rest of the way. Got the big blocked field goal, had a turnover, had another turnover taken away. They just played a complete game. Now, look, I mean, the Carolina Panthers are a very limited team. I mean, even in their win against Green Bay, I think they had 200 yards of total offense. They had 175 today. But I thought the Saints had a really smart game plan. They basically said, you're not running the ball on us. We're going to make Bryce Young beat us. And I think a lot of teams are going to do that this year because he frankly can't do it. Their passing game's very limited, as we saw today. And I thought Tyler Shough showed, if you're a Saints fan, you finally got some glimmers of hope today. And Tyler Shough, the way he played is exactly how this team needs him to play for them to be competitive the rest of the year.
Glimmers of hope. We're going to bring Rod Walker on and go 3 box here, as Scott Hansen would say. Glimmers of hope. Robbo's ready to go to the Super Bowl, man. Like, you give these Saints fans some reason, and they're going to be happy. Rod, all jokes aside, I think there were a lot of positive signs today, and I think it's just nice for that locker room to have that happen and have it be a win.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was listening to Tyler Shough just then, and he talked about what this win meant to him. And he said the best part was just seeing guys in the locker room, clapping hands and dapping each other up and hugging each other. So it's been a long time since they've had a game like this they've had a win before, but this is like a win that, against a team with a winning record on the road, where they played, well across the board, which hadn't always been the case. It's usually one side carrying the other side or something. But this time, it kind of felt like a real win.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have been a lot worse. Like, you had that. Again, I don't think it was a bad roughing the passer call on Justin Reed, but it was kind of fluky. He just threw his hands up and happened to hit Bryce Young's face mask, and they're going to call that. But it was like that takes away an interception on just kind of a fluky thing. And if it weren't for that, Saints defense very well may have pitched a shutout. We haven't talked a lot about that defense, Jeff, but I thought Brandon Staley did this perfectly today. You play the run. You make Carolina kind of earn every yard on the ground and then see if Bryce Young can beat you. And quite frankly, he was not up to the task.
Yeah, they tackled much better today. They really had a good plan. I think kept everything bottled up in the interior. They gave up a couple little leaky runs early that had me worried. I thought, man, this could be a long day. But then they shut that down after the first quarter. There really wasn't anything there. Kind of flushed everything out wide and then came up and tackled, and there was really nothing Carolina could do after that. I mean, they had to rely on their passing attack, and it's just so limited right now. And I thought the coverage on the back end was really good today. It was just kind of a total team effort. I thought Demario Davis played one of his best games of the year. He does not look 36 years old. You had the other old head, Cam Jordan, getting a big sack on another play. I just thought all facets of the defense played well. Alante Taylor with a big interception as well. Really their best overall effort, I thought, all year, even though I know they had all the takeaways against the Giants.
Yeah, another guy I thought played well was Nathan Shepard. I mean, he had a sack, he had a blocked field goal. I mean, it was pretty impressive to see that many guys play like they played today.
I tell you what else was really impressive to me was getting the ball with 7:35 left in the game. You're still only up by 10, so the game's still very much alive, and they ran the clock out. I mean, like that was really impressive to me that you could run the clock, the final 7.5 minutes of the game off the clock. That's just dominant effort by the offensive line there, and that's something we haven't said very often this year.
And to do it with the line, with all the issues we had that we talked about coming into this game with with McCoy being out, for Walker being out, Penning traded. I mean, that was good to see at the end of the game.
Comment here. Chad asked what time of possession was. It actually was almost dead even before that final drive. Saints end up 33-21 to the Panthers 26-39. So it was that last 7-minute drive that was the difference. But you're right. I mean, that's not something we've seen the Saints team do, I don't know, at least 2 years. Just sit on the ball and not give the other team a chance. And again, this was I know the Panthers are 5-5 and they're theoretically still in the playoff hunt and everything. Like, this is not one of the top teams in the NFL. You'll never convince me otherwise. But the fact of the matter is the Saints have a lot of that left on the schedule. And I said before y'all came on, but there are still wins out there, I think, especially if you're going to get the level of play the Saints showed today.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I mean, I think the biggest thing also that you keep hearing over and over from a lot of people, not just us that are kind of myopically following this team, but I heard Mark Schlereth say it today. I heard Jake Delhomme on the pregame show say it on WWL radio when he scouted the Saints and watched film. They're still playing hard and together. I mean, they've not quit on the season. And that speaks, I think, to the coaching staff and the leaders of the team. Even though the record's very lopsided, they're still playing hard. So that gives you, I think, some encouragement down the stretch when they start getting in these games against some other teams that could be playing out the string. I think the Saints are still going to be playing hard, and sometimes that's all that matters down the stretch here.
No doubt about it. Go ahead.
Now, that's one thing that Cam Jordan talked about this week was just how, they were 1-8 going into the day, and he said it felt a little different than the 2-8 or whatever they were this time last year. So that's a credit to, I guess, Kellen Moore, whoever was able to keep the ship afloat, because it was, they had every reason they could have just quit on this season, and they didn't.
I want to ask you guys what you are writing about. You're each writing columns today, and Rod, we'll start with you, and then Jeff, I know you're working on something a little bit different. What was your takeaway from today, and what's the column about on NOLA.com coming up?
Yeah, for me, it's just Tyler Shough. I mean, I think they found their guy. And I know I'm probably putting a lot into one game, but I think you saw the arm strength, the poise, the pocket presence, just all the things that you kind of want to see in a quarterback. And this is kind of why Kellen Moore and the Saints wanted him. And I think they saw signs of that today. And I think, I think as far as the Tyler Shough versus Spencer Rattler, I think that debate is over with now. I think he kind of put that to rest. So that's kind of what I'm just writing about.
And Jeff, you had mentioned this before the game, like, this goes beyond just this week or just this season of Saints football. But mentioned early in the show, former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue passed away this morning at the age of 84. And Paul Tagliabue did a lot for the NFL, but he specifically did a lot for the NFL in New Orleans. Yeah,
I think one of the hallmarks of his legacy was the work he did kind of stewarding the Saints franchise in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, really a master class in crisis management and how to handle something of that caliber. And he was a longtime, really lover of New Orleans culture, South Louisiana culture. He came down here in the 60s when he played basketball at Georgetown University and just fell in love. They played in the Sugar Bowl Classic back then. He fell in love with New Orleans, and he always would come back. Even after he retired as commissioner, he'd frequent the city and the area. I know he was a big fan of Cajun Zydeco music and the food in South Louisiana. He'd go visit like the Tabasco factory in Avery Island. So he just had an affinity for the city, and I think it showed after Katrina the way he had a firm grasp on that situation and really – Gabe, I think one of the more underrated things he did was putting that return game to the Superdome back in 2006, putting it on Monday Night Football, global platform, the biggest platform the NFL has to showcase the city's recovery after Katrina and also the Saints coming back. I mean, that was Paul Tagliabue that did that and gave that game the spotlight it deserved, and I think helped facilitate the city's recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking forward to reading that for sure. Jeff Duncan on Paul Tagliabue. You won't get that perspective many other places. Before we let you guys go, let's just ask this sort of big picture question. Does this change anything for you for the Saints going forward? Again, it's just one game. It certainly gives them good vibes going into the bye week. But as we look forward to the second half of what is a lost season, does today's performance change anything for you, big picture?
I think for me it does, because I think I was thinking, okay, these last 8 or 9 games, we're going to find out if Tyler Shough is, is he the guy they're going to move forward with. So now I think we kind of know that answer now. And the team still has a lot of other holes, so I think now you know that, okay, we need to start thinking about some other positions. And so for me, that's what it is. I just think that they've found their quarterback.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think he answered a lot of questions today. Look, I mean, a little bit of it was fluky. I mean, J.C. Horn fell down, I think, on both of his touchdown passes. But you could see the poise he played with, the command he played with, the mobility, some of the traits that the Saints liked about him coming out of college we saw on display today. And I thought even an underrated play of avoiding the sack in the end zone, like quick decision-making, spiking that ball on the ground at the feet of Devin Neal, avoiding the safety. Those are good signs that you can build off of. And I think for the first time, I saw today maybe a formula with how the Saints are going to win games and play solid defense, get some timely passing, sprinkle in a little bit of the running game, but let Shough operate there and just don't make any big egregious mistakes with the ball. And I thought he did all that today. But, it's one game against, frankly, probably just an average team at best. It's hard to get too excited, but I think it does answer a big question for this team going forward.
One more thing I was going to add, Zach. I just feel like, I think the defense played well. I think the offense played well. Special teams was okay. But Kellen Moore still kind of concerns me with some of his decision making. Like, I don't know if this guy's is he a gambler or is he ultra? Because, I just don't know what he's going to do in any situation. There was a time he decided to go for it instead of kick the field goal when they were down close, and
he goes on he kicks on 4th and goal from the 2, and then goes for it on 4th and 4 from the 30. And I'm with you.
Yeah, I just don't know who he is yet.
Maybe that's the point. He's crazy like a fox, and you just never know what he's gonna do. But I'm with you. I think he's still kind of figuring out who he wants to be as a head coach. Yeah. So, all right, Rod Walker, Jeff Duncan, we're gonna let these guys get back to work. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks. See you, Zach.
And we will bring on Matthew Paris, who's live from Bank of America Stadium there in Charlotte. And Matt, first of all, did they have the donuts this morning at Bank of America press box?
They did. I did not get one, but they had them.
Krispy Kremes, right? I mean, we're going top of the line. Yeah.
Right.
So that's important to note, but also important to note, this was a top of the line performance from the New Orleans Saints. I mean, I think, like I mentioned this with Jeff and Rod, we can talk about that first win over the Giants. Anytime you get 5 turnovers and a couple of them, quite frankly, just given to you, it feels like you were just gifted a game. Today, the Saints dominated, at least a lot more than that one.
Yeah, I mean, they still had a few turnovers, but I felt like this was maybe one of the first games this season where the defense physically imposed itself on another team. The defensive line was really impressive. The coverage was sound, but I think the story of the day and what my gamers is about is Tyler Shough. Just that aggressiveness he showed on 3rd down, willing to air the ball out in certain situations. His growth in terms of handling a pocket thing, like a pocket presence, because that was the rub on him coming out of the draft, right, Zach? Is that he had a lot of work to do there. That there were some concerns, unfavorably compared to Derek Carr in certain situations on how he handled pressure. I thought it was real impressive today. He was poised, and I think he's shown noticeable growth, and that's what's important for the Saints this season. It's how much do they have in Shough? What steps does he take along the way? And I think he made a pretty meaningful one today.
Yeah, he was really good. Finishes with the numbers you see there on the screen. And then I did want to mention the other parts of the offense here while we're on it. Didn't want, Zealous Ideal to think that I was ignoring his comment. I saw a couple of them about, was this addition by subtraction without Trevor Penning? I don't know about that, but I will say an O-line that was missing 3 starters from its first team group, between Eric McCoy and Penning, and then also Tagliabue, who's out injured. Like, I thought they played pretty well today, and that was aided by Shough and his pocket presence.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were still some shaky moments where Shough was pretty under duress, especially early and often. But, what you want your team to do when you get the ball back with 6 minutes left is just run it down the other team's throat. And they had rarely ever, like, they hadn't been able to do that this season outside maybe the Buffalo game. And they just didn't have that physicality, but they found it today. And I do think, I think Dylan Radins is a physical guard. I don't know if it's a complete, like, that's the reason why the line was suddenly better in the run game, but I think they found their footing, and they were able to be physical. And Alvin Kamara, he might not have that explosiveness as he did early in his career, but he's still a physical back when needed, and is able to get some important yards.
I'm going to add Luke Johnson to the stage here, and we're going to go 3 box again, since I know you guys have work to do. Luke, welcome in to the postgame show. And first of all, your overall thoughts on the Saints. I think inarguably their best performance of the season.
Yeah, without question, to me. Look, to me, I think Tyler Shough is the story of this game. I was listening to what Matt said, and I just agree with everything. The poise he showed in the pocket today. So many of those plays were set up by him extending plays, finding guys who were third, fourth in the progression, not even supposed to be in the progression. A touchdown to Juwan Johnson's an example of that. It was really, really impressive. Like, we all knew that he could really sling the ball coming out of Louisville. I don't think anybody doubted his skill as a thrower. It was really about the stuff that really separates good quarterbacks from the not so good quarterbacks. It's, can he navigate pressure in the pocket? And today, like, he really did it well. And today is like one of those games where you can see, like, yeah, this is a guy who they could maybe build around if he's able to put together a lot of games like this. So I mean, that to me that's the first and most important thing out of this. But I mean, I also thought they played a great game defensively today. If you would have told me coming into this game that one of those teams had the number 1 overall pick at quarterback and the other team had a second rounder, would have been like, well, Tyler Shough's obviously the number 1 guy, because the Saints just said they got after Bryce Young. They completely shut down the hottest running back in the NFL. Dowdle had been averaging like 130 yards a game in the last 5 games. They shut him down. It was just a really, really impressive performance. They were able to overcome some of their own mistakes and some of the, kind of questionable play calls that nullified third down stops. I just like everything about this game today, even to a degree, the special teams I thought played well. So it was a really good performance by the Saints.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I also wanted to mention Chris Olave, because we talked a lot this week about Rashid Shaheed and how the Saints fill that void. And there's still a question mark there for me. But one way you could fill it is if Olave wants to become a true number 1 receiver. And he had 5 catches for 104 yards today. He had the 62-yard touchdown. He also had the circus one-handed catch, despite being interfered with, to keep that final drive going. I thought he played maybe his best game of the season today as well.
Yeah, and it was really impressive given the circumstances of what happened here last year. He had that season-ending concussion. He's told us after the game that he hadn't really thought about coming back. That he wasn't really worried about coming back to the stadium this week until he actually got here. And he said he felt quite a bit of anxiety before the game, talked with some teammates. His dad was in the stands and went over to talk to him at some point. And, he seemed after the game not shaken up, but definitely you could tell that the emotions were there with him today. And he was pretty open and honest about what he was feeling emotionally. And so for him to have the game like he did, I think is really like a testament to him and a credit to him, because, it's not just can he be a number 1 receiver? I think he's actually kind of running some of the routes that Shaheed would do. I mean, just being able to be that explosive down the field threat. Like, they did that with Olave, but they definitely did it with Shaheed, and they don't have that as much anymore. So they've got to fill the void somewhere, and I think he's one of the ways that they can do that.
Before we let you guys go, I want to ask you the same question I asked Jeff and Rod a few minutes ago, and that is just this is 1 win. The Saints are 2-8. They are not going to be a playoff team in 2025. We know that. But given the performance of Tyler Shough and this team showing you that maybe the ceiling is a little higher than we thought, what does this change, if anything, for you as we go over the last, into the bye weekend and the second half of the season?
I mean, I'll start. It doesn't change anything for me right now. I think before we can really start thinking hey, maybe they have something here. They got to show they can do it. in consecutive weeks or a couple weeks out of 3. I mean, last night they beat the Giants and then they went on this skid that looked where they looked awful. So it's encouraging today for sure. The Tyler Shough thing, super encouraging. A lot of but there's also some stuff today where it's just Kellen Moore's doing some really questionable stuff. Some of these third down calls and the clock usage at the end of the first half. It's just like, you got to see some more. Like, there's some encouraging stuff. There's also some stuff where you're just like, man, that looks like a bad football team at times. So like, I think I'm right where I've always been with this team, in that they've got to see what they got in their young players and let them grow, let them make mistakes, let Kellen Moore grow and make mistakes, and see where it's at the end of it. I don't think we can ever rush one way or another with this team, to kind of pass judgment.
I heard Rod kind of declare that he thinks Shough is their guy. I'm not as ready to go out on that branch. I think if he puts together like 3 or 4 more games like this, they'll have their answer. But for it just to be one game so far, I don't think it's necessarily misleading, because I actually think, we talked about it on our podcast a few days ago. Like, I think the Panthers were a good team. Like, this is a much better win than the Giants game, just given the level of competition and the Panthers beat the Packers last week. Like, this is a team that was playing really well, and so you factor in the level of competition, even though they didn't have necessarily the best day. I think who they beat is impressive, and you have to give the Saints credit for that. It's just like Luke said, can they continue it? How does Shough build on this? Because that's what I want to see, is how does Shough continue to take how to improve, and how can he actually build off this, because it's a really good start.
Yeah, no doubt about it, and obviously a positive week for the Saints headed into the bye week. Luke, our good buddy, the Northern Saint, who decreed you all the bear and the hat man famously, does tell you to be careful wearing suede in nasty weather. But I think it's pretty nice there. It's a little windy.
Look, this is a good jacket. And it's gonna be kind of chilly tonight. We're gonna figure out if our friend is correct about my choices, fashion choices, sartorial choices in this venue.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Get to writing, and we will read you at NOLA.com and in the Times-Picayune tomorrow.
Cheers.
That is Matt Paris and Luke Johnson. I saw a comment up there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, about Matt being negative. Guys, we're going to keep it real, and how Matt's not a fan. He's not a fan. He's covering the team. You don't I know there are sites out there and podcasts out there where you can find fans who cover the team and react to the team as a fan. And I'm appreciative of that content. And I realize that is what some people want. That's not what we're here for at the Picayune and the Saints Insider. Now, it makes our lives easier when the Saints win. I think it's more fun to cover a winning team. We would rather have that happen, but we are paid to kind of keep this. The buzzword in journalism is objectivity. We're paid to keep it objective, but really more than that, it's just we're paid to keep a level head on this stuff. And so when the Saints are struggling, we say, well, here's where they're struggling, and here's the problem and where they need to get better. And then when things go well, sometimes it's pulling back and saying, well, not everything is fixed, like Rod Walker did. And so that's our role here. And I hope that is still valuable in the marketplace, because we know it's crowded. We know there's places that you can read content and watch shows and everything, but we're confident in what we're doing, and we're not going to be purposely negative or purposely positive. We're going to try to tell it like we think it is. So anyway, some comments here as we wrap things up on the Saints Insider post-game show. Saints 17, Panthers 7, your final score. And let's see, we have Houdat from Montclair, California. I'm going to get out before I have to edit all the stories that go in tomorrow's paper. I'm going to take a little walk before it gets dark and cold here in Louisiana. And I think that in Montclair, California, you've probably still got quite a few hours of good weather. So I'm jealous of that. Bobby going wild on his show. I believe that. Look, Atlanta's a pretty good team. I don't know how to feel about Atlanta. I think their defense is better than I thought, and their offense is worse than I thought. So that is an interesting matchup that we have 2 weeks to look forward to. Let's see. We do get paid, Northern Saint. We do. We are a private company. and you can't buy us out. Maybe if the price is high enough, just let me know privately. I'm just kidding. Well, you're the Northern Saint. I assume you're somewhere up north and it is already cold and dark. I saw the Germany game this morning. My brother actually lives in Germany. He lives in Munich. The game was in Berlin, a few hours north of Munich. But it was like, see, I turned that game on at like 9:30 this morning. I think it's a 7-hour difference. So it's 4:30 in Germany. And it was already like dreary and dark there. And I'm going, man, it's November. It's early November. I don't know if I could do like 5 months of that, where by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's just like dark and dreary. And I know Berlin's far from the only place that's like that, but that was my thought. It did not look real comfortable. And speaking of that, Zealous from Austria. So all the way from Austria, pretty close to Munich. Last time I was up there, I went over to Salzburg, a great city there. And I think that was in March, and the weather was bad. So yeah, but a beautiful place. I don't know if that's where you're from or not, but love that part of the world. And love that for you guys that you got to watch a Saints win today. So I think we are going to wrap things up. And by the way, not for nothing, this season is what it is, and the Saints are certainly, nobody expects them to even sniff the playoffs at this point, but they did. It's always a good day, right? When for Saints fans, when New Orleans wins, Carolina loses, Atlanta lost this morning, Tampa Bay lost to New England, everybody else in your division lost. So gained a game on everybody, I guess. Still 2-8. Don't know how much it changes, but we haven't been able to say that very often at all over the last couple of years. So that is what's look, we're going to take the positives when we can take the positives. And I will say, look, a bye week's a great way to do this. And I think we can end here just to put this in perspective. It was 53 weeks ago. It was 1 year and 1 week ago that the Saints were in Charlotte, and we were sitting here having a conversation about how they had suffered an unacceptable loss to these Carolina Panthers. And that we didn't quite know it at the time. We probably knew that it was the final nail in the coffin for Dennis Allen. Didn't know that it would happen the very next day, but it did. They fired Dennis Allen. They struggle through the rest of the season. Derek Carr retires. They draft Tyler Shough. They bring in Kellen Moore. It's been a tumultuous year and a week, but things kind of came full circle a little bit for the Saints today. They were the 1-8 team springing an upset. The Panthers are the team that now has to worry about its quarterback. Probably not Dave Canales yet. I think he's probably still fine, but it's the roles have been reversed a little bit, and now it's the Saints who can look forward and say maybe there is a light at the end of this tunnel. I still think there's going to be some serious bumps in the road. This is not a great team. We saw what a good team like the Rams does to a team like this, and I still think there's probably going to be some bad losses, maybe against bad teams. That's one thing about playing a bunch of bad teams down the stretch. The Saints will have more wins. They're probably going to lose to some of these bad teams and not look very good doing it. Imagine a loss right before New Year's to the Tennessee Titans in Nashville or something. I mean, I'm not predicting that right now, but that sort of thing is on the table. A home loss to the Jets. I mean, like these things, maybe the Panthers turn around and beat the Saints in the Dome on December the 14th in 5 weeks. This is a team that is going to suffer some wild bouts of inconsistency. And I would caution against being too positive based on this performance. But having said that, it was a great performance. And it was a great performance from some guys who are going to be around this team for a while in Tyler Shough. And they hope Chris Olave, I mean, he's under contract for another year. Saints and Chris Olave are in contract extension negotiations, so they hope to keep him around. From Alante Taylor, who may be in that boat. The Saints almost traded him to the Colts last week. Comes around, has one of the best games of his career, and may or may not be around long term. But then also from some of the younger guys on the offensive line, and Devin Neal at running back, I thought looked passable today, and we'll see what the Saints look like going forward. But a positive day for the Who Dat Nation, and so I'm happy for all of you guys to have that today. And it certainly makes you appreciate the wins. Look, DA is doing just fine for himself, man. The Bears are having a good season up there. I think you can be happy for DA. David, still out there, man. NOLA.com. You can get a digital subscription and get all of our writing for less than it used to cost to get the to get the paper, or about this. I mean, certainly inflation adjusted, less than what it used to cost. So anyway, that's going to do it for our post-game show. New Orleans Saints 17, Carolina Panthers 7. First road win under Kellen Moore. First victory in the quarterbacking career of Tyler Shough. And the Saints get to have a happy flight home to New Orleans, get to have a happy bye week, and you get to read all about it in the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. For Rod Walker, Jeff Duncan, Matthew Paris, and Luke Johnson, our team on the ground in Charlotte, I'm Zach Ewing, and we will talk to you later.